Dude, there was this time I was riding my bike with my friend in our neighborhood when I was 12. We eventually rode out in front of a big black car. It was like a mini truck, and the dude honked really loud at us. It was then that I got the smart-ass idea to stupidly flip off the car and let out a, "What you gonna do, bitch?" Man, a huge guy stepped out and started yelling at us. He said, "Do you kids realize who are you talking to?" Then he said he was gonna open his trunk. This girl was also on the car, probably her girlfriend. She got out of the passenger's seat with literal tears on her face, crying and begging the guy not to open the trunk. At this point, me and my friend were completely frozen in fear. And when the girl got out of the car, I can swear I saw a gun on the back seat. My friend saw it too, a pistol. "What happened? Why aren't you two running already?" the big dude said. As the guy's words hung in the air, a surge of adrenaline finally kicked in. I glanced at my friend. His eyes were wide with the same mix of fear and disbelief I felt. We didn't need to say anything to each other. We just bolted, our bikes clattering over the pavement as we pedaled like our lives depended on it. 'Cause as we found out later, they did. I could hear the man shouting behind us, but I didn't dare look back. The only thing on my mind was putting as much distance as possible between us and that black car. We swerved down a side street, hoping to lose him in the maze of our neighborhood. My friend was right beside me, with his breaths coming in short, panicked gasps. We didn't stop until we reached a small park at the edge of the neighborhood, where we finally skidded to a halt and jumped off our bikes, collapsing onto the grass, trying to catch our breath. Then, I heard the faint rumble of an engine in the distance. My stomach twisted as we realized the guy could still be out there, looking for us. I turned to my friend, who was nervously scanning the area. "Dude, do you think he'll find us?" he whispered. "I don't know, man," I replied with my voice just as shaky. "We need to stay low and quiet." We huddled together, our bikes lying on the ground beside us, as we tried to calm down. I kept replaying the scene in my head, the way the guy had stormed out of the car, the fear in the girl's eyes, and the glint of that gun in the back seat. What the hell was in the trunk? Why was the girl so terrified? Our minds raced with terrifying theories. We sat there for like 20 minutes, too scared to go, and too scared to stay. Finally, my friend broke the silence. "We can't just sit here, man. We need to get home," he said. I nodded, but the thought of going back out on those streets made my heart race. What if he was still out there just waiting for us? But we couldn't stay in the park all night either, so we just stood up and grabbed our bikes. "Let's take the back streets and avoid the main roads," I suggested, trying to sound more confident than I felt. We started pedaling again, this time much slower and more cautiously. Man, every corner we turned, we tried to see if the black car was somewhere waiting for us. The streets were eerily quiet. It was like 6-something p.m. The usual sounds of the neighborhood absent. It felt like we were the only ones left in the world. Two kids being hunted by a crazy man with a gun and something even worse in his trunk. As we neared our houses, we thought I heard the rumble of an engine again. We froze with our hands tightening around the handlebars. "Did you hear that?" he asked. I nodded. The sound was faint, but it was there somewhere behind us. We couldn't see the car, but we knew something was there. Without another word, we took off again. We didn't care about being quiet anymore. All we wanted was to get home or anywhere safe. We finally reached our street, and I could see the light on in my living room. I knew that if I could just get inside, everything would be okay. I shot a glance back over my shoulder, and that's when I saw it. The black car, turning the corner right into our street. My heart nearly stopped. The guy must have been following us this whole time. "Get inside, now!" I shouted to my friend as we threw our bikes down and sprinted towards my front door. When we got there, Guess what? I thought I lost MTO goddamn keys. The sound of the engine grew louder, closer, and my friend was pounding on the door, begging for my parents to open it, but they weren't coming. Finally, I found the damn thing and managed to unlock the door, and we both stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind us. We stood there in the darkened hallway, our breaths coming in ragged gasps, listening. The car had stopped right outside. We could actually hear the engine and the low rumble vibrating through the walls. My mom appeared at the end of the hallway, looking confused and worried. "What's going on, guys? Why are you boys home so late?" she asked with a voice full of concern. "There's a guy outside, Mom. He's been following us," I blurted out, shaking. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone and called the police, her eyes absolutely widening with fear as she listened to my frantic explanation. My friend and I peeked out the window, trying to get a look at the car, but all we could see were the headlights casting long and eerie shadows across the front yard. The engine finally cut off and we heard a car door slam. I was so goddamn shocked that I could barely breathe. A soft, almost polite knock sent chills down my spine. "Don't open it," I whispered to my mom, who was frozen in place. She nodded, her knuckles white as she gripped the phone. The knock came again, louder this time, more insistent. Then, a voice, calm and cold. "Come out, kids. I just want to talk." My blood ran cold and my friend grabbed my arm. There was no fucking way we were opening that door. Suddenly, the police arrived minutes later. Their flashing lights were illuminating the street. The guy must have seen them, because we heard his car slamming shut and the car speeding off with the tires screeching. The police took our statements, but there wasn't much we could tell them. Just the vague description of the man, the car, and the girl. As the night wore on, the adrenaline began to wear off, and the police promised to patrol the area. My friend ended up staying the night. There was no way in the hell he would go to his house alone that same night, so we sat in my room, trying to distract ourselves with some games on my Xbox, but the fear was always there. Sleep was almost impossible, but eventually exhaustion began to set in. The next morning, me and my friend rode our bikes back to his house, fast as hell and constantly checking over our shoulders. After 1 year, we found out about something chilling. We saw the same guy on the internet on a news website. It said he actually killed 2 people, and we automatically remembered about the trunk. We don't know if he did something to that girl that was in his car that day. We just hope not. Man, we are still speechless to this day. All I know is that we were lucky as hell, lucky that we got away, lucky that the police showed up when they did. Every now and then, when I'm alone at night, I sometimes think about this man, wondering what would have happened if we hadn't been so lucky. When I was about 13 years old, during break at school, I noticed a lot of other kids outside a storage room yelling and warning to others with pale faces not to approach that door because, quote unquote, there was an eyeball staring back at you. Of course I was curious, dude, because I didn't understand exactly what they meant by that. But the fear was definitely real. Their faces were almost white pale, as they would try to stop me from checking it out through the keyhole. Eventually they let me check it out. I went there and bended down slightly, so I could get a good look of what was going on inside, and sure enough, I saw an eye staring back at me, and that shit creeped me out so much I peed my pants on the damn spot. As I backed away from the door, I just froze. "Did you see it, man?" One of my buddies said. "Yeah, man, I saw it. I'm scared now." We didn't know if we should tell an adult about it. Eventually, the bell rang and everyone scattered to their classrooms. There was no damn way I could pay attention in the math class. My mind was still on that storage room door. It didn't make sense. Who or what was behind that door? Why would they just be standing there, staring through the keyhole? In the class, my teacher's voice was just background noise, and the math problems on the board were a blur. All I could picture was the eye. Me and my friends decided we were going to try to see if it was a threat or not, but the idea of going back to that door made my stomach churn. After school, I decided to hang back with two of my friends while everyone else rushed out. We wandered the halls, making our way back to the storage room. It was really quiet, the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. When I reached the door, I hesitated, with my hand hovering over the handle. I knew it was stupid, but I couldn't help it. I had to see if it was still there, if I had just imagined the whole thing. I slowly bent down again and peered through the keyhole. But this time there was nothing, just darkness. I felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment, like I had been expecting something more. Man, maybe the eye was gone, or maybe it had never been there in the first place. I stood up, rubbing my eyes, convinced I was losing my mind. As I turned to leave, I heard something, a faint, shuffling noise from behind the door. It was so quiet I almost missed it. My heart skipped a beat. I leaned in closer and pressed my ear against the wood. There it was again, like something moving slowly, almost deliberately. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and every instinct told me to run, to get the hell away from that door as fast as possible. But I didn't. Instead, I knocked. A single, soft tap just to see what would happen. For a moment, there was nothing. Then I heard a knock in return, muffled but unmistakable. It was as if whatever was inside had been waiting for me to acknowledge it. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. I didn't know what to do. My brain was screaming at me to get out of there, but my feet felt glued to the floor. That's when I heard the faintest whisper, like someone calling my name from just beyond the door. My blood ran cold. How could they know my name? Panicking, I turned and bolted down the hall, my footsteps echoing off the walls. I didn't stop until I was outside, gulping in the fresh air like it was the first time I'd breathed all day. I avoided the storage room for days after that, refusing to go anywhere near it. But eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was going on. One afternoon, I found myself back at the door. There I was, alone. This time, I didn't look through the keyhole. I just turned the knob, praying it would be locked. But it wasn't. The door creaked open, revealing the dark, cramped storage room inside. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. There was a musty smell of old textbooks and another horrible smell, like bad meat. I scanned the room, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. There was no one there, just a bunch of shelves, stacked with boxes and random school supplies. I felt a wave of relief, but it was short-lived. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. I whipped around, but there was nothing there, just shadows playing tricks on me, I told myself. But then, I saw it again, a flicker of movement in the far corner of the room. My breath caught in my throat as I slowly approached the corner, my footsteps barely making a sound. As I got closer, I saw what looked like an old, dusty mirror propped up against the wall. It was cracked, the glass spider-webbed with fractures, but it was clear enough to see my reflection. Or at least I thought it was my reflection. But then it blinked. I staggered back, realizing that the reflection wasn't mine at all. It was someone else, someone with those same eyes I had seen through the keyhole. They stared at me, unblinking, their face twisted in an expression of anger or pain. I couldn't tell which. My head spun, and without thinking, I turned and ran, nearly tripping over the boxes scattered on the floor. I didn't stop until I was out of the storage room, slamming the door shut behind me. I struggled to catch my breath. I never went back to that storage room again. We finally told the principal, and needless to say, we did the right thing. They found a weird-looking dude hiding in there, and he got arrested. No one knows what his true intentions were. When I was a kid living in Baltimore, there was a couple encounters in my house that changed me forever. I played with my friends during the day, and in the night I was laying in bed like half awake. Then I turned my head and saw this huge black figure that was the shape of like a dog or maybe a wolf, something like that. But it was really disturbing. It was like the silhouette of a big-ass dog, maybe a German shepherd. I faced the ceiling, and when I look back, it's gone. And then, maybe 2 weeks later, on other night, I get out of my room to use the bathroom, and when I looked at the dark hallway, I saw a black tall figure run out of the bathroom. It was really quick. I instantly bolted back to my room. My urge to use the bathroom had low-key disappeared. That night, I laid in bed with the lights on, trying to shake off the unease from seeing that shadow figure. And 2 weeks later, I had almost managed to convince myself that this shit had stopped. The memory of the dog-like silhouette was fading slowly, and life had returned to its usual rhythm. But on this particular night, as I was lying in bed, the air felt different, heavier somehow. My bedroom window was cracked open, letting in a cool breeze, but it didn't ease the tension in the room. Couldn't sleep. My eyes kept darting to the corners of the room, expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. Around midnight, I felt the urge to use the bathroom. I tried to ignore it at first, but the discomfort grew until I had no choice but to get up. I reluctantly swung my legs over the side of the bed and headed toward the door. The hallway was dark as usual, but there was something unsettling about it that night. Man, it felt like I was stepping into a void, where anything could be hiding just out of sight. I walked down the hallway slowly, my senses heightened, with every creak of the floorboard making my heart race. As I approached the bathroom, I noticed the door was slightly ajar, as if someone had been in there and left in a hurry. I reached out to push it open, but before I could, I saw something move. Another one, a dark, tall figure darting out of the bathroom and disappearing around the corner. Panic surged through me, and I froze in place, my hands still hovering in the air. I didn't know what the hell to do. Should I run back to my room? Or should I check if someone else was in the house and tell my parents? My mind raced with possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. I was alone in this, and whatever was in the house with me, it didn't feel human. After what felt like an eternity, I gathered the courage to move. I stepped into the bathroom, quickly turning on the light, half expecting to see that shadowy figure lurking in the corner. But the room was empty, just as it should have been. The only sound was the steady drip of the faucet, which seemed loud in the silence. I closed the door behind me and quickly did what I needed to do, keeping my eyes wide open on the door the entire time. When I finished, I hesitated before opening the door again. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the sweat on my palms. I reached for the doorknob, slowly turning it, and peeked into the hallway. It was still dark, still empty. I stepped out cautiously, every instinct telling me to run back to my room as fast as I could. As I made my way back, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there. I turned my head slightly, glancing over my shoulder, but there was nothing there, only darkness. I quickened my pace, finally reaching my bedroom door, and shut it behind me. I leaned against it, trying to calm my breathing. Back in bed, I pulled the covers over my head, as if that thin layer of fabric could protect me from a fucking demon. But I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying what I had seen, the way that figure had moved so quickly, so fluidly, as if it wasn't bound by the same laws as the rest of us. The night dragged on, with each minute feeling like an hour. I must have drifted off at some point, because the next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by a loud thud coming from the hallway. My eyes snapped open, and I lay there, paralyzed with fear. I strained to hear any other noises, but the house was silent. I couldn't stay in bed any longer. I wanted to end this as if a little kid could. I threw the covers off and swung my legs over the side of the bed once more, But this time, I moved with more urgency. I opened the door just a crack and peeked out into the hallway. It was still dark, but I could make out a faint outline of something near the far end. Squinting, I realized that a door next to the bathroom that hadn't been opened before was suddenly opened. It was the room that our guests used to sleep at, and I went in there to check if there was someone or something. When I reached it, I hesitated a lot, with my hand hovering over the doorknob. I didn't want to open it, but something inside me needed to know if we were safe. I opened it, and in the center of the room stood the figure, tall, dark, and disturbing. It was facing away from me, but I could feel its attention on me, as if it knew I was there. My body trembled, and I wanted to run, but I was just shocked. The figure turned slowly, revealing glowing eyes that seemed to stare right into my soul. Suddenly, it opened its mouth. It was a really big mouth, man, like across its whole face, but no sound came out. And then, I can swear to you I don't remember anything else. I just woke up in my bed, drenched in sweat with the morning light streaming through the window. My mind was racing, and I could still feel the terror from the night before. But when I looked around, everything was as it should be. No strange door, no shadowy figure. After that, I had no more encounters like those, thank Jesus. I told my parents everything, and after a while, they began to treat me serious about it. We moved out of that house the same year, as anybody should in a situation like this. I'm still searching for some kind of explanation,